Most people don't know how to plan out a really effective leg day. And you may be working hard, but if you don't have a proper structure and you aren't selecting a nice variety of movement patterns, you are leaving gains on the table. So in today's video, I am going to give you the exact framework that you can follow so you can keep creating killer leg workouts so you will see your best results. I'm gonna show you various movement patterns that you want to make sure you are implementing into your routines. These movement patterns complement each other. You're going to be hitting your lower body at different angles, and this is just going to let you see your full potential. So let's get to it, because the booty gains are waiting. They're waiting. So I start off most workouts with just a very light cardio warm-up. Since I'm doing the warm-up today on a rowing machine, it's a lot more challenging, so I actually only did 3 minutes. But if I have something like a treadmill, I'll do some light walking or jogging for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. It really just depends on how I feel that day. And if I feel like I need something to get me going a little more, I'll warm up on a cardio machine for a little bit longer. So this next exercise is not something you have to do in your warm-ups, but if you're someone who struggles with lower back pain or tightness, this can be very beneficial for you. I've only recently incorporated this into my warm-ups because I've been trying to strengthen my core to reduce lower back pain, and it does help, especially when I do it as a warm-up. So this is a bird dog, and I used to think this exercise looked really stupid and easy. I was like, that's a little baby weenie exercise. I'm not even gonna do it. And then basically, if you think it's an easy exercise, you're doing it wrong, which I've learned because I'm shaken here. So when done properly, the bird dog has been shown to be an effective movement to reinforce proper spinal alignment and core recruitment. So you want your knees under your hips and you want your hands under your shoulders. When you raise your opposite arm and leg, you want them going straight out, and you have to keep your abs braced, your stomach in, and your whole body in one straight line from head to toe. So you don't want your hips going uneven. You want them staying in line with the floor. So that means you don't need to be kicking up your leg or raising up your arm too high. Otherwise, your lower back is going to start to move. I try to picture something balancing on my lower back. I actually sometimes will put something on my lower back because you're stabilizing everything really well if the book stays in place. So just picture that, and then you squeeze up, you hold, and then you lower back down. And for my warm-up, I honestly just do 1 set per side. I do 8 reps on one side, 8 reps on the other side. Okay, so now's the part of the warm-up that everyone's going to want to do, and that is the glute activation. So I tend to always start with squats for my glute activation, mainly because when you have the band around your knees, it just starts to reinforce proper technique, and then that carries over to your regular squats when you're actually using weight, because your knees are pushing against the band, so you feel it in your glutes a little bit more. Then I usually move on to a kickback type of movement, because that really fires the glutes up for me, because that is the whole purpose of glute activation. Not to tire yourself out or anything, just to feel like your glutes are waking up. So you don't need to do too many reps. I'll do anywhere from 15 to 20, depending on how fatigued I'm feeling. And then I always do a bridge type movement. So here I'm doing glute bridges. Sometimes I'll also do hip thrusts or feet elevated glute bridges. And now for the last exercise, I usually do something that's hitting the side of the glutes, and I've changed to a lighter resistance band just because I find side-lying leg raises more challenging than all of the other exercises I did. So in order to do 15 reps and not feel too tired, it feels a lot better doing it with this rubber resistance band as opposed to the thick fabric. So that's it. I just do the 4 exercises, 15 to 20 reps of each, and that is all I do for glute activation. So here's another part of the warm-up that is optional. This isn't 100% necessary. I like to do just a little bit of stretching for my upper body, because I guess because I've been lifting for a while, I get more stiff. I just feel like I need really good, extensive warm up. So I do a little bit of stretching for my lats, and I don't keep it completely static. I'm kind of moving back and forth a little bit, and then obviously I do the other side, and then after that I stretch out my shoulder and chest, and then this just makes it more comfortable to hold the barbell during squats. I feel like I can kind of squeeze my back and the bar sits more comfortably. So yeah, like I said, you don't have to do this part. If you're like seeing this and being like, oh my gosh, this warm up is friggin' long, don't worry, you don't have to do this. I don't even always do it, but some days I'm like, you know what? I need this extra little part of my warm up added on. So that's it. That's the warm up. Okay, so now that we're into discussing the structure of the workout, we are gonna first cover the movement patterns. So, when you're planning out your leg days, you want to include multiple different types of movement patterns. You don't want to be just doing squat type movements, and that doesn't have to mean it's just squats. That can also include lunges and split squats and things like that. Those are amazing exercises, but you wouldn't want to just do those types of movements. So you'd want to make sure you're doing hinge type movements and bridge movements, things that we'll go over in this video. And the reasoning for that is just to fully develop the upper and lower glute. And also, when you're working the glutes and lower body at various angles, this is going to transfer over to functional activities. So you lower the risk of injury, and basically you're just maximizing your glute potential. And who doesn't want that? So the other type of movement you want to have in your leg days is a hip hinge movement. So this is basically deadlift type exercises. This does take the hamstrings through a larger range of motion. So you're going to be hitting your hamstrings and your glutes. So this doesn't just have to be sumo deadlifts. It can be Romanian deadlifts, conventional deadlifts, cable pull throughs, hyperextensions, stiff leg deadlifts, back extensions. All of those are a similar type of movement pattern because you're hinging at the hips. You're pushing your hips back and forward rather than a squat or a lunge where you're moving up and down. So the next type of movement pattern that we are going to discuss is a bridge type exercise. So basically, this is any type of hip thrust or glute bridge, and this is a very similar motion to a hip hinge exercise. The main difference is just how the exercise is loaded, which basically just means how the weight is in relation to your body. So a bridging type movement, that is a horizontal load. A hip hinge type movement is a vertical load. So horizontal movements are a little bit less taxing than a hinge movement, but they're still activating a large amount of the glutes. Okay, so now I'm doing another hinge type of exercise. So this is constant tension Romanian deadlifts. Now, you wouldn't want to be doing multiple different variations of heavy deadlifts. So my sumo deadlifts, I mean, they weren't heavy. I was doing them for 8 reps, but these I'm doing for 15 to 18 reps. So they're lighter, high rep. It's constant tension, so it's meant to be more of like a pump kind of exercise. So basically you would just have to be conscious of these things. So if you're doing one set of a hip hinge type movement that's heavier and more taxing, your other hip hinge type movement should not be quite as taxing. So that's what I've done here. The RDLs are more of like a light high rep movement. I really feel a burn, really feel a nice little glute pump, but it's not heavy and hard like the paused sumos. And that is another thing. You wouldn't want to be doing too many hip hinge movements in a workout. I don't really think I would do a third one because the lower back would just start to kill. It's harder to recover from. So I would pretty much not go above 2 hinge type movements. Now, like everything in fitness, there's no black or white answer. So I'm not saying never do more than 2 hinge type movements, because in certain types of programming, it could be strategically done. But as a rule of thumb, if you do all hip hinge movements in your leg day, you're gonna die. Okay, so next is the second squat style movement of the workout, and I generally pick a single leg type of movement for this. So that can be pretty much any type of lunge variation. So here we're doing split squats. It could also be reverse lunges, walking lunges, step ups even. So it's definitely helpful to include some single leg exercises because it can just pinpoint muscle imbalances, help improve your balance itself and core stability. So for that reason, I tend to have a regular squat and then a single leg squat style movement. And I actually find that the single leg ones are excellent for hitting glutes a little more than squats themselves. So they're killer. Do them. And I wanted to quickly mention that usually on my other leg day, I'll try to add some type of hamstring single leg exercise. So typically that would be single leg RDLs. It could also be single leg curls. That way, the one day you're getting some single leg work for quads slash glutes, and the other day you're getting hamstrings slash glutes. So again, that's just going to make sure everything is more well-rounded, because basically when you're planning out your workouts, you don't want to just throw in any odd exercise. You want to look at the bigger picture, think about how different exercises affect other exercises in a negative or positive way, and plan things around that so it's strategically done to optimize your progress. Okay, and then I honestly do it only once a week, I think. It can be helpful to do a hip abduction type of move. So this just serves to build the upper shelf of the glutes, which is primarily made up of the glute medius and upper glute maximus. And this can be targeted specifically with hip abduction type movements. So here I'm doing side lying hip raises. I was actually just doing one set of these. High rep basically to failure. So you could do lateral band walks, you could do side lying leg raises like I did at the beginning, you could even do seated hip abductions either with a machine or with a band. And this type of exercise, it's a small muscle group, so it's not something you need to do as much. These are kind of just like the icing on top. You wouldn't want to be doing, say, a bunch of hip abduction exercises and no squat type movements or no hip hinge type movements. Those are the key bread and butter of your workouts. See, I'm dying here. These are hard. But these can help to be sprinkled on top. So I'll find one of my leg days, I'll do 2 leg days a week. So one of them I'll finish with an abductor type exercise like this. And then on my other leg day, I'll do a kickback type of variation. Now, that covers most of the movement patterns. The only one we haven't really talked about is knee flexion. So that would be something like a hamstring curl, because it's going to target your hamstrings with minimal assistance from the glutes. So that could be like a lying leg curl, a Swiss ball leg curl. I don't have a leg curl machine at this gym. While I could have done a Swiss ball leg curl, I didn't. Instead, I chose to do the movements I did. But if you can do one of those, again, once a week, that is beneficial. All right, and that is it for today's video. There's definitely a lot more things that can come into play when designing a workout, but this is a pretty good start of what you need to know. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!